This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs. Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com or, of course, follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by the composing team, Zach Robinson and Leo Birenberg. Leo Beam. I got it right the first time.
I rather enjoy this.
I love Birenberg, actually.
Yeah, Birenberg. I like too. I need some new pseudonyms. So this is good.
Let me take it from there, okay, Jason? Every week we interview film professionals to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by composers Zach Robinson and Leo Birenberg, whose work includes The Weird, the Yankovic Story, Cobra Kai, and Pitch Perfect, Bumper and Perlin, just to name a few. Welcome to the show, guys.
Yo, what's up?
I guess my first question for you guys is, how do you guys approach a project together? How do you guys like to work together on creating the sound for shows and movies?
Well, we actually give a lot of thought to things that we do together versus pursue in our own right, because we think together we make a pretty awesome combo team. We're the fun guys, we like to say. People tend to reach out to us when they want to do something, and this is an actual quote from a music executive, batshit crazy. Or if they want to merge popular music, like whether that's contemporary popular music or from a certain era, with kind of a more big film score mentality, or just kind of giving it more of a scoring heart, even if it's not big. And so we tend to tackle a broad array of projects, all of which our goal is is the audience going to be having fun while they're listening to the music? That's our criteria. And so everything we do, we try to approach it from that point. And we collaborate a lot to come up with those sounds. We have very similar kind of technical setups from a tech perspective. So it's easy for us to trade files back and forth. We don't share a studio. We both work out of our own houses and basically just FaceTime each other all day while we are jamming and coming up with ideas and trading ideas and stealing each other's ideas. It's a great collaborative process.
I got into sound designing at a point when things were just developing. I was really fascinated by the idea that dialogue, effects, music were all components of the soundtrack to a film, which had never occurred to me before. What gets me excited is coming up with sound ideas that do match picture, but also is not just the equivalent of what you're seeing on screen. I'm Eugene Garrity, and this is my course on sound design.
Now, I want to know, because you sort of talk about batshit crazy. You guys worked on Weird. So
definitely qualifies.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering because when I watch it, it's depending on the scene, it seems like the composition in the background is going to change style. So it's not usually in a movie, it's here's the sort of style we're going for. Whereas this, it's, when he learns My Bologna, it's got accordion at the start, and then there's this sort of Spielbergian realization moment, and then there's this, when he meets Madonna, it's piano and violin. So how did you guys approach this project and figure out, what scene was going to have sort of what style?
Well, credit to Eric, the director, Eric Appel, and Al too, and Eric really had this vision of Weird being this kind of as Leo likes to put it, this great American hero story. And we really wanted, he tempts, with not original music when they were editing, he tempts it with Forrest Gump, that very kind of early 90s, Alan Silvestri, Thomas Newman sound. Mm-hmm. And that immediately, it worked immediately, but it also we understood the assignment quite quickly. And I think that was kind of the foundation, was let's do a very sincere orchestral, like Americana film score. And, you know, the Spielberg thing that you mentioned is for sure a part of that. And I think it sets the tone for the whole movie. And Eric has talked about how that scene, like the My Bologna scene, is really one of the first times where the audience is like, oh, this is the movie that I'm in. Like, this is a very, you know, it communicates the heaviness and like the intensity of what the score can be. And like, then as you go kind of, as the movie progresses, it gets more unhinged, and the music does need to reflect, the score needs to reflect kind of the like unhingedness that is happening in the movie. And yeah, the Madonna makeout scene, you know, the diner fight, the trip to Latin America, like all of those things we seized upon very quickly to figure out like what's the best kind of, like, what is the highest octane musical version of score that we can do here. And it always worked, because like you could never go big enough with this movie.
Yeah, this film can support a lot from the score.
Now you sort of mentioned a bit before that Weird Al was involved. Was he involved in the composing in any way? Not obviously not doing the composing, but giving you feedback on it?
Yeah, he was in. We'd go over to Eric's cutting room for a meeting, and Al would be on Zoom because they'd be like working on the cut before we got there. And then we'd sit down and chat music and play some cues. And then Al, who was on tour at the time, like he would always be zooming in from like Wisconsin or Nebraska. Cause like when Al does a tour, he's like the everyman. He goes everywhere. It's honestly freaking amazing. And he would then just be like, oh guys, I gotta go play my show. I'll be back in 2 hours. And he would just like log off and then come back 2 hours later, having just played a full concert. He's the nicest guy. Probably the biggest note he had the whole time was actually for the very last scene in the movie, the like in memoriam montage. We kind of, our first version of that, we did this like very kind of up tempo, like almost like a retro end credits, like here's all the friends we made along the way style cue. And Al very smartly thought that it would play better being like extremely serious elegy. And so then we did that, and it was a lot funnier. So we went for that. Basically there was this constant, it wasn't even like a push pull because we committed to it pretty quickly, but like the score is always playing like the straight man in the background of this scene, this movie. And whenever we tried to do anything too lighthearted, it just like didn't quite work right. And that's kind of the biggest example of that. Like it just plays better when it's like serious and tragic.
Well, I guess you never question Weird Al. He's
and you never question Weird Al.
That's true.
Yeah, he's got a temper, as we saw in the movie.
Yes. And yeah.
He's the weird one.
Yeah. What have you guys seen him live before? Or?
Yeah, he was my first concert ever.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I was like 8. But I haven't seen him since then. I haven't seen him since we worked together. That would be really fun.
Yeah, because I've heard his concerts are pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I was gonna say I think the last tour that he did was like very like unplugged version. He was playing like his originals, and the tour had like a funny name. It was like the songs you don't want to hear or something like that. Like, yeah, I don't remember what it was. It's actually kind of like honestly what like the Daniel Radcliffe in the movie. Like he doesn't want to do parodies anymore.
Yeah, he wants to be an artist.
Yeah,
the Al acoustic rebrand.
Yeah,
going through that phase.
Now, when you guys are working, like you talked about, you know, you're both in separate locations, but like, when you're creating the music, do you guys tend to stick to synthesizers and sort of creating, you know, like here's my strings and stuff, or do you guys create it and then go to an orchestra or go to a larger piece for it?
It's a bit of everything, but like mostly the latter. We kind of make these extravagant demos that are not the final product, but reflect all of the intention of the final product. And So we write, a bunch of, we call it mock-up orchestra in that. But then in this movie case, and honestly, most projects now, we record the final product with a real orchestra. We used like an 80-piece orchestra for this in Budapest. Yeah, it's huge. It's got to sound cinematic. So we pulled out all the stops, and you can really hear it. It's the type of score that wouldn't really work if you used a smaller orchestra, because then it would just feel like, oh, they like kind of tried to do it, but this doesn't sound like ET. But like you need it to be Forrest Gump. You need it to for the joke to play. It's gotta be committed to the full size thing. So it's great that we told the producers that early on, and everyone made it work, and that's great.
And no one believes you when no one has worked with an orchestra before. They don't believe you that our mock-ups are pretty good. Like if you heard it, you probably, if you really listened, you'd hear that it's fake, but like they're pretty good. And to a lot of people, like that's good enough. And when you're like crunched for time and money, it's good enough. But as Leo said, we very early on, we're like, y'all need to find the money to do this, because this is the vision of Eric's vision. Like this is part of the vision. And even Eric, like he was like, these are pretty good, like the mock-ups. And we're like, just wait till you hear it. And I don't think he'll never go back now,
Yeah,
it's like,
no way.
There's no way you can do it after you hear the real thing.
What do you think it is that makes it so different? Like, is it the acoustics of the rooms? Is it like the scale of
there's definitely a giant acoustic aspect to it, and just kind of the setup, a lot more microphone control. You get a lot more depth and width to the sound, but it's mostly the performance. When you have 80 people kind of breathing and phrasing naturally and musically together, it's just not something you can really program. It's like the difference between, I don't know, like high level brain power and like a calculator that's just doing addition or something. Like it's just it's like such a difference in computational ability and expression. And so that's kind of like the magic ingredient that makes music sound like music, and why you can go see 10 piano players play the same Franz Liszt piece and they'll all sound different. So that's what you're getting.
We work with an amazing orchestrator, and an orchestrator's job, Vincent Oppido, orchestrated Weird. And his job or her job is to like take our MIDI, our data from our computer that we've programmed all the music, and put it on paper. And he's basically translating the music from the computer to the paper. And then that goes, we recorded in Budapest with an amazing orchestra. So it's like, it goes across the world, gets printed out, and then musicians read it. But the orchestrator's job is really difficult because they need to like know music very well, and they need to sometimes see our programming and say, hey, like the oboe like can't play that high the way you programmed it, or like the oboe's going to need to breathe and you didn't program kind of like breath. So there are these like little idiosyncrasies like that add up with the orchestra. And it's truly like, when we sit there listening to the orchestra after we've sat with the demos for so long, it's like breathing new life into everything. It's amazing.
So what would you look for? Because like you talked about, like the room plays the size of the orchestra plays, all that stuff plays a part. But like I think about, like I'm in Toronto, and I remember like I've seen some bands at Massey Hall, which is designed for acoustics, and it sounds amazing in there. And then I've seen, I saw Elton John a few months ago went on his last tour at the Sky Dome, and it sounds horrible, but like he's got to get tons of people in there. So like when you're looking for a space to record, like, are you allowed to choose your space to record in? Are you allowed, or like, and what would you look for in it for acoustics?
We typically don't get to, but there are like, basically there's a huge technical aspect to recording a film score and setting up this many microphones. Like when you go to a concert hall, even like we're in Los Angeles, and I live right around the corner from Disney Hall, which is like one of the best acoustic rooms on the planet. Orchestra sounds unbelievable in there. But even though tons of movies get recorded in LA, I don't think a single one has recorded at Disney Hall. Maybe like one random film. And it's because like they're not actually set up to like mic it all up. And when you mic an orchestra for a movie, I mean, you can make the argument this is totally not necessary. But there's like 100 microphones up so that you have an extreme amount of control and ability to like really have detail in the mix if you want to bring something out and get a certain frequency that colors it a certain way out. And so the options are actually much more limited when you're doing a project in this world to like studios where it's set up for that kind of recording. And also like usually there's an entire like group of filmmakers there in the studio as well. So it also needs to like have the capacity for that. So in LA, there's like 3 stages where you can record at really to standard. And there's like 2, 3 more in London like that. And then several other cities where scoring happens, Berlin, Vienna, Budapest, where we did this. There's really only 1 or 2 concert halls. And it's kind of predetermined for you, like where you can record.
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of, I was just using those as examples. Like,
yeah,
it's so drastically different, like with the echoes and what have you. No, you guys have worked on some pretty amazing stuff like Cobra Kai, Weird. You got Florida Man on Netflix. You've got more coming, as we were talking before. So if you had to go through your canon, what would be your favorite piece that you've had to work on?
Oh wow, we love all our babies. That's the diplomatic answer.
But you got to, in film, you got to kill your darlings, right?
Yeah, yes. We kill them every day. Every day, there's just baby side here. I don't know. I mean, like we, as Leo said, this is kind of a lame answer. I feel like we do pride ourselves on when we approach a project, we really like have a pitch together and we say like, this is the thing that we want to pitch to, everyone, not just like the showrunners or whatever, like the filmmakers. Like this is like, hey, the vision. The vision. It's our vision. We have Spotify playlists like that we do like for every project. We just put together a bunch of stuff that we really like. And I don't know. I think for me, maybe Cobra Kai just has a very special place in my heart.
Yeah,
because like we were there, from the ground up with that show, and we had a vision, and we pitched that vision to John, Josh, and Hayden. They had the same vision, and it's just been such a wonderful collaboration for over, it's been like 6 years now, and it's just been an amazing partnership. And I think like we often are working on Cobra Kai, and we're like, I cannot believe that this got approved. Like that, this is going to be on Netflix. That's going to get billions of minutes streamed. This piece of me, like sometimes when you're coming up as a young composer and you work for people, and you can see how people get jaded. And sure, we get jaded sometimes too, but it is very cool to see that like we can have a musical vision and it can be accomplished and it can be brought to fruition. And Cobra Kai was kind of like that was like the gate opening for us, where we could say like, oh, we should do this on every project. Like, on Florida Man, let's do like a weird kind of psychedelic acid jazz thing. Okay. And it gets approved. So like, that's great. We love that. So there's a lot, and Bumper in Berlin, we did some crazy stuff too. We were just like, here's our crazy vision for it. And sometimes you just have to pitch it, and people are generally down.
What was your, like, how would you describe your vision for Cobra Kai?
Hair metal meets Eastern mysticism meets synthwave.
Well, we talk about often that like, in the comedy canon, like there's always a training montage, no matter what you're watching. And you're just kind of like, and you're kind of like, joking, oh, it's a training montage, or like a Super Bowl commercial, there's a training montage, like oh, ho, 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 like funny 80s music. And Cobra Kai was, let's do the training montage, but it's actually sincere. It's a sincere, serious training montage, and let's approach the music like that. And like, this is, the guys treat that show like Star Wars, and the music has evolved into that. The scope of the music grows bigger and bigger with every season because it's just the music is so, I mean, the story is so serious to them.
Yeah.
Gargantuan.
And it's gargantuan. And we love 80s music. We love symphonic music. We love all that stuff. And this was just kind of like, I was a big like 80s music person before I even met Leo. Like I was doing electronic music production and stuff. And it was just this kind of thing where it was like, this is it. Like we're doing it for the fans, like not just us. Like this is trust us. Like this is what people want to hear. And John, Josh, and Hayden were like, yes, we agree with you.
So wait, what's your go-to hair metal band?
I know Leo's.
I like Bon Jovi. I'm a
Yeah.
Bon Jovi huge fan. Zach, we could be here all day answering that question. I feel like.
I love that. I'll say the ones that influence Cobra Kai the most are the Japanese hair metal bands, like X
Oh,
Japan
that would be awesome.
X Japan is one of my. I think about a lot of these. I mean, it's crazy. Like people that now you're like getting me on this whole like nostalgia.
Yeah.
Like I just had my wedding the last like 2 weeks ago, and people, you know, were coming up to me that I haven't seen in a long time. Like people from like my childhood, I was in bands with. I was in a band called Dracula Mountain, and all of Dracula Mountain was there. And we were like a metal band inspired by video game music. And my friend Luke, who was in the band, he was like, dude, you're just like doing exactly what you want to do. And you were doing that in Dracula Mountain. It's crazy that you're like doing that now. Because it's like a lot of Dracula Mountain stuff went into like Cobra Kai, like that kind of metal, symphonic metal, melodic metal, but like video game inspired. And it's just wild that we get to do that. And we're very fortunate.
Yeah. I have one last question for you. What would you guys say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
Interesting.
Or you could also say guilty pleasure music if you'd like.
Guilty pleasure music, I can listen to like brandless lo-fi for like hours, but like it starts to feel like it's all been made by AI because it's just like the tracks never begin and end and they're all 2 minutes long. This is like not the best answer, but it's kind of related to weird. I was at a wedding last weekend because this was an influence on weird. And like I was a groomsman in the wedding. So I like did the thing where I like go over to the groom's like suite beforehand and we're all like getting changed into our tuxes and someone turns on the TV and there was just like a gajillion episodes of this show about like catching tuna that everyone in America is like
Wicked Tuna.
with. Yeah, Wicked Tuna, which is not my guilty pleasure. But after watching that for like 3 hours, someone picked up the remote and started flipping through the channel and landed on like the last 20 minutes of Shawshank Redemption and like just 15 men all half dressed in tuxes just all stopped exactly what they were doing and like sat on the couch just like absorbed by the last 15 minutes of that movie. And that was pretty awesome.
Great score.
It feels like TBS bought the rights or the windows for like 30 years because whenever I'm somewhere where TBS is on, it's like on.
Yes.
Just available.
This was probably TBS.
Yeah. How about yourself, Zach?
I'm a big believer that guilty pleasures don't exist, that everyone should like what they want to like. But I will say that I did just crush Selling Sunset with my wife, like over a 5-day period. And that is some trashy television, but I really enjoyed it. And Leo and I both love smooth jazz, non-ironically. Like we both listen to smooth jazz all the time. I like legit love Kenny G. I don't consider that a guilty pleasure. I'll ride and die with Kenny all day.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today, guys.
Of course.
Thank you.
And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com or of course follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching. This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs.